Ladies and gentlemen, welcome into the third episode of JT Uncut. I am the aforementioned JT, that's JoeTilleryy. Thank you so much for being here on the podcast. We talk all about the cats, and as you can see, this episode now has video. I got a lot of requests from people asking for video with the podcast, so I'm nothing if not a people pleaser. If I can do anything to make things better, I will always try my best to do that. So we're going to roll it with some video for today's episode. It's going to be an awesome one at that. We've got a lot of high school basketball recruiting stuff to talk about, some different things with the women's team, some stuff for Jerome Tang and the coaching staff, some stuff for football, just a lot of different things, fan questions, what's going on with me, some different topics in the K-State community, and I'm excited to cover each. Quick reminder, I know I say it all the time before I get started, hit the subscribe button if you're interested. 3,000 subs, getting a cat script tattoo on the left thigh, and it's the best way to support the channel as we continue to grow this thing. So thank you all who do participate and help out with that. And if not, consider doing it. If not, not the biggest deal in the world. Let me jump in right here. For the outline, for those of you, if it's your first time watching or your third time, I guess I was going to say 100th, but I don't expect you to be rewatching that many episodes. That being said, with the podcast structure, what I try to do is go with K-State topics, things happening in the K-State community, move more towards myself, what's been going on a weekly basis, and then jump into a bunch of viewer questions. We got a ton of questions in today's episode. Thank you all who have been asking questions in the last couple episodes. Thank you for those who maybe are first-time question people, first-time watchers. I appreciate all the support I can get, so thank you all for joining in on that front. But let me kick it off here. I think the best way to go about this is to talk about the women's basketball team because there was some significant news this week. Significant doesn't exactly mean good, and I want to preface that now. Let me start with the hard news. After this game against Arizona State, the K-State women win 81-69, a great game for the team. Obviously, they had their slow moments. They had some stuff where the team just did not look like they were functioning, but they're still a top 10 team for a reason. I guess top 11, excuse me. They're a damn near top 10 team for a reason. They're going to figure it out. They pushed through adversity. They got the job done. However, one thing in that game that was an issue, star center Ayoka went down with a serious injury, according to Jeff Mittie. No, it's not confirmed to say what exactly it was. I know there's been some stuff where she'd been dealing with prolonged not feet injury, but a foot injury for a while. Now, it sounds like it was a re-aggravated injury, but Jeff Mittie provided a short, but I was going to say sweet, but he provided a short comment on what the injury was, basically saying, hey, I don't know the severity, but I know it's not good. I don't know if it'll be, a situation, like he didn't specify a full timetable, but it's like, I know it won't be 1 or 2 weeks. That was the words that Jeff Mittie used to describe Ayoka Lee's injury. She goes down with about 2 minutes left in the first half of action against Arizona State. She didn't return to the bench. She didn't return to the sideline. She stayed in the locker room for the entirety of the second half, which you kind of understood was not a good sign, obviously, but something they're going to need to deal with. And I know that's going to be a big topic in the viewer questions of what happens after Ayoka Lee's injury here. And I'll talk more about that. But as of right now, you feel for the player, you feel for the person because she's been here 5 years and she's had to deal with a lot of injuries. And obviously it's scary for her. It's scary for us as a fan base, but you just pray for her and you hope the best. I don't think it's a season-ending thing. At least that wasn't I can't sit here and say what it is. I don't want to speculate, but from the sound of it, Jeff Mittie, I think he does expect her to be back. It just might not be for a while. The severity's still up in the air, but it is a scary thing to see for Ayoka Lee. But moving over to some positive news on the women's basketball side of things, obviously there's always positives when you're 19-1, 7-0 in conference play, a top 10 team. Things are really, really great at Kansas State right now for the women's basketball team. Outside of that, a girl that's set to be there next season, Jordan Spicer, a 5-star prospect in the upcoming class, currently ranked the number 6th player in her class, just got selected for the Nike Hoop Summit. If I'm getting this right, let me make sure I get the official thing right. 12 girls selected. Jordan Spicer is one, the 5-star freshman, coming to be freshman, I suppose. Jordan Spicer is one of 12 women selected for the women's roster for the 2025 Nike Hoop Summit for Team USA. An awesome thing to see. Kansas State's got a good one. I'm excited to see her play. We talked a little bit about her in the last episode, just jumping up in the rankings from On3. I think it was On3's rankings, but she went from the number 13th ranked player in her class to the number 6th ranked player. That's a big deal. People are noticing, people are watching. We'll see what it looks like at the top. If she jumps up more, continues to climb, so on and so forth. The point is, you have a dang good basketball player committed to Kansas State, and you should be excited to watch her in that Nike Hoop Summit. It'll be really cool. I should have had that pulled up. I don't. I'll get you the details at some point, but it'll be a cool spectacle to see for sure. Now transitioning to the men's team, which, admittedly has not been a lot of people's favorite topics. I still want to hold out hope, not for this season because they're not making the dang tournament this year, but I do like to hold out hope for the future. They lost to Kansas by 10 in the Sunflower Showdown in Allen Fieldhouse. Now, I know that there's the conversation of, are you into moral victories? Yes, no, whatever. It doesn't mean anything. It could mean something, whatever. I feel like the people that are like, oh, moral victories don't mean anything, just don't want to think about anything else beyond wins and losses. Like, I'm not sitting here to say that you shouldn't feel like, oh, we did good things, we did this. There were positives in that basketball game. One, everybody thought you were going to get blown up by 30. Heck, Vegas had the line at like 17 points. There's a reason for that. Kansas State has looked awful. They've looked dog water. They've looked bad at everything, but they banded together. They looked good at times. Obviously, Doug McDaniel was kind of still the lone guy that didn't have the best energy on the court, but like you saw some really, really good things from young guys that I want to prioritize and keep around next year. For Kansas State, David Castillo finally gets the monkey off his back of going 0 for 18 from 3, goes back-to-back threes in a run to cut the lead to 6 with 4 to play. And you saw the intensity and the fire in his face and his gut. Like, you saw him looking at the coaching staff. You saw the energy that he had. It was reciprocated back. Like, that's a kid that wants to win basketball games at Kansas State. He's not a kid that's just saying, yes, sir, my stock's developing, I'm doing good, I'm XYZ thing. That's a kid that wants to compete. When he slowed down the game and just focused on the game of basketball, you saw him making play after play after play. Paired with a guy like Ugonna Onyenso, who they had an awesome lob down the stretch, David Castillo makes the play perfectly, hesitates to set the defender up, has Hunter Dickinson take a step towards him, toss it up and over, Ugo goes up and yam that thing. The thing that I like to see, and I'll talk about this later, I promise this will be a question from the fan-submitted questions, a lot to talk about with men's basketball as well, positive and negative, admittedly. People have kind of questioned where do you go from here this season? I'm going to have a full video drop in a day or two about this topic because I think the rebuild needs to start somewhere. It feels like the coaching staff understands, hey, our time this season has come. Not to say that, throw in the towel, throw everybody to the bench, do whatever, but like there's a balance between, beating a dead horse and tossing the young guys out there to develop. David Castillo took a step forward. I think Ugonna Onyenso took a step forward. My question would be, and this will be a question, how many people are going to be retained from this season to next season? Jerome Tang's already talked about it. He shifted the gears to say, you know what? We need to build a program here. We need to build a culture here. We can't just have these one-year rental type dudes that don't come in and affect the culture. He didn't say that verbatim. I'm taking this a little out of context, so sue me on that one. But you see guys like David Castillo. If it were up to me, and I had a tweet about this on Twitter as well, if it were up to me, I would do everything possible to prioritize David Castillo as your starting point guard next year and Ugonna Onyenso as your starting center next year. His size, his length, and his ability are needed. Like, those a dude that affects the game plan completely different. And I'm not sitting here saying that this year he'll be a starter. Maybe we'll see that reality, maybe we won't. But, like, you want guys that are going to try and have effort. I know Ugo hasn't had that consistently. I know he probably isn't happy with the usage rate. I know he's not doing what he was expected to be doing, at least in the eyes of himself or the coaching staff, whatever the case is. Ugo hadn't cracked up to what everybody expected him to be. The reality of the situation is David Castillo took a massive step forward. He has to be your everyman starter at the center spot. Obviously, though, he's also kind of a wing forward, so it's a little bit different than just like a defined center. But Ugonna Onyenso gives you something you don't have on this team. I know length is one thing. He gives you a physicality that you can match up with a guy that's 7'2", 260 in the post in Hunter Dickinson. You can toss him against anybody, and there is a size mismatch in the post that's going to go get you some defensive effort and some shots blocked. He's still working on rebounding. He's still working on chemistry. He's got an offensive ability to tap into still. And I'm not going to sit here and say he's reached the ceiling. What I will say is this. You want to bring back culture guys. David Castillo is a culture guy. Brendan Hausen's a culture guy. And I don't want to let the cat out of the bag of picking who I think will be back and who won't, but if you can get a guy like Ugonna Onyenso to come back and truly, like, Coach Tang's philosophy is never, I'm going to promise you a starting spot. You'll be the starter next year. You won't. That's not how he's going to do it. But if you can get to the point where Ugo says, you know what, this is my front court. I am going to be one of the 5 dudes out here who's going to play alongside with me. I know that the first 15 games probably didn't help his stock in terms of him wanting to stay at Kansas State, but if you can take some NIL money, if you can take some stuff that you have allocated, if you get the, pour into these kids over the next 10, 15 games and show, okay, we may not have been where we needed to this year. We are going to build this thing the right way with you guys and then add some pieces around you. In case you've forgotten, the scholarship roster is going up to 15 next season as well, so you can prioritize some of the younger guys and say, okay, we need you for depth. We need you for this. We need you for this. If you can continue to develop, you leave David Castillo in the starting lineup. I think he's a true starter at the point guard position. It's taken him some time to get there, but he's a kid, man. He's learning every single week. He feels like a dude to me that has like Avery-level upside in football. I know that's a lot to say right now, but David Castillo absolutely is that dude and should be treated as such. I don't think anyone's sitting here, lying about that or saying, okay, well, I don't think he's very good. There's been a couple of negative people responding to the tweet being like, oh, this kid's not very good. This kid's not very good. For those of you wondering about Ugo in D.C., they led the team in plus-minus. I know that's kind of a metric that people roll their eyes at sometimes, but overall, they had the 2 best plus-minuses of any player on the court. When David Castillo's on the court, they're 15 points better than Kansas. That was the reality situation. After that 14-0 run, they won the game of basketball. I know you can say, well, you still gave up 14 points off the rip. I'm not here to dispute that. I'm not sitting here to say that we should praise this staff or we should praise this guy or this guy. All I'm saying is you have confirmed pieces on your roster right now that will help. And I keep seeing the same narrative I saw last year of like, there's nobody on this team that you should keep. Start fresh. If you do that every year, you'll have the same thing. Some years you'll hit big, some years you won't. This year you have guys that can come in and help immediately next season. Obviously, you would have liked to keep Data. You would have liked to keep Cam. You would have liked to keep Art. There's things that are out of our control. Whether that's a player wanting to go home, whether that's wanting more NIL money, whether that's this, whether that's this. There's always going to be things that can, that can change the situation. If Ugananyenso's not happy here already, the next 15 games, make him happy here. Do what you can to earn his trust back. Because it's never set in stone in college athletics until it's done and signed it on the dotted line. And even then, it's still not always done. But the point of what I'm saying is you have guys this season that you can absolutely keep and use next season to win basketball games. Find pieces around David Castillo, Brendan Hawes, and Ugananyenso. Build through the right guys through culture, depth, have some guys with multiple years of eligibility left, and move from there. But that's kind of the thought overall as of right now in terms of what's going on with K-State basketball. Or K-State sports in general. Football, nothing much changed. No portal commits this week. The portal's kind of winding down. We'll probably have some more down in the future. We'll see what happens there, as well as the spring portal window. But let me jump into what's going on with me real quick. Two small things, maybe not small things, two very different things. One, this week I found out just about how wrong I've been about Cocoa Puffs. Yes, the cereal Cocoa Puffs. I have actively been cuckoo for Cocoa Puffs this week. My entire life I have been a Lucky Charms man through and through. This is not, this isn't news to me that I've been a Lucky Charms guy. Like, die hard, buy the books Lucky Charms. That doesn't mean I don't like a Captain Crunch here or there. That doesn't mean I don't like a Fruit Loop here or there. That doesn't mean I don't like, a couple different cereals as they come across the plate. Love me some honeycombs. Love a good bowl of Honey Nut Cheerios occasionally. But the point of what I stick to, I do not deviate from Lucky Charms. If I'm going to the store to buy a box of cereal, I'm getting Lucky Charms. My girlfriend's always had this conversation, or my fiance, My fiance and I have always had this conversation where it's like, I've always thought they're better without milk. For whatever reason, they just feel like a good dry cereal to munch on in terms of Cocoa Puffs. And they had a sale this week, and I know my girlfriend likes Cocoa Puffs. I'm more of a Lucky Charms man. And it was 2 for $5 on the boxes of cereal. So you know what? I grabbed 2 boxes of Lucky Charms, 2 of Cocoa Puffs. And I had a bite of her Cocoa Puffs. And I was immediately like, holy cow, my life has been a lie. I need to sign in for Cocoa Puffs. I need to lock in for Cocoa Puffs. What are we talking about? Everything has changed since then. The milk is delicious. After you're done eating the cereal and it's chocolatey peanut butter goodness in the milk, that is such a good flavor. And I'm not sitting here to say that Cocoa Puffs are better than the marshmallows in cereal or in the Lucky Charms, but when you think about it at face value, there are so many good aspects of Cocoa Puffs. The texture's good. In the milk, it's good. Dry, it's good. You can get a handful of dry cereal and you'll crush that stuff because it's delicious. But in the end, when you compare across the board, the Lucky Charms marshmallows might be the best thing ever invented. That being said, everything that's not a marshmallow is still it's just it's a heart healthy Cheerio. It's not got the sugar, doesn't have the everything else. It's not going to be the best part. It's not selling it's not the selling point of that cereal. That compared to Cocoa Puffs, not even close. Maybe I have Lucky Charm fatigue right now, but I'm committed, man. It is so tasty. So I'm changing the tides a little bit. We're locking in a little bit more to the Cocoa Puff mentality. So boys and girls, for those of you watching, first of all, thank you for being here. It is the year of the Cocoa Puff. 2025 is Cocoa Puff season. Let it be known. Alert the authorities. Alert your calendars. Do anything you can. It is Cocoa Puff season. Next topic, what's going on with me? Vastly different conversation. I've been kind of leaning into more what my future looks like. Yes, I know I was just arguing about cereal, but I've started to get more and more into recruiting than I thought it was. Not that I have any connections, not that I have anyone to talk to about this outside of, select fans, select people. I've got some connections here and there, but this week I've just gone on a weird thing where I put together a big spreadsheet this week of guys that I really, really like in the class of 2025 that are still uncommitted in terms of high school basketball prospects. I know that most of the ship has sailed. It's a little bit late to get conversations with some of these guys, and you kind of look towards the 2026 class. But I got to tell you, this week has been a good week for me in terms of excitement about the future. And I'm not saying that I don't have excitement about the future regularly, but my perfect dream job, I've said it 100 times. I apologize if I'm burning your ear off about this. I want to be a recruiter for K-State basketball and K-State football. Whatever facility, whatever I do, whatever job, whatever that looks like, that's what I want to be. Couldn't do it for anybody else in the country. I love Kansas State. I'm committed to 3 letters, not individual people. The point of what I'm saying, I went through a bunch of different high schoolers film. I went through some guys that are ranked in the class, different spots, guys that are under-recruited, under-ranked. And I found 3 or 4 guys that I really, really, really like. And for whatever reason, that process has really stuck out to me. Watching film, watching guys play and compete at different levels, watching this, and then piecing them in my mind to what they could be for Kansas State basketball, it's kind of lit a fire in me. And there's not really a conclusion to this outside of the fact that I want to tell you guys, get it off my chest, but I've really, really enjoyed what I'm doing lately with recruiting, and this will come up again later in the question section, but I feel good about the future of Kansas State basketball, whether it's the men, whether it's the women. Obviously, the women are rolling high right now. The team looks great. They've got great recruiting, great coaches, great people in leadership. The Kansas State basketball team needs some work. I'm not going to sugarcoat that. The staff knows that. They're not going to sugarcoat that. The reality of the situation, I feel like there's opportunity to be had, and it takes the right guys. It takes 2 or 3 of the right guys that can change the world. 2 or 3 right guys that can change the program. And I don't know if I'll ever have any impact on that. I don't know if I'll ever have any say in that, but I just wanted to tell you that now that I'm keeping my eyes out more and more, and I'm seeing some different dudes that pop up in terms of film, in terms of high school basketball recruiting, whatever the case is. But I feel like Kansas State is close to getting some of the right guys. Not necessarily 5-star one-and-done guys that we're going to have for a year. Like, that's no different than having a guy from the transfer portal that's going to be elite, go to the NBA. It's no different. The reality is, you get the right culture guys. David Castillo is a culture guy, and that's a big-time prospect, too. I'm not saying that's not a situation where you could swing and miss, but you had a couple of the right guys here and there that have upside and skill that are maybe a little bit more raw, maybe just a little bit, smaller recruited area. Maybe they're in Minneapolis rather than Texas, or maybe they're in, Iowa City versus, California. There's so many things like that, but in terms of what I like to see, what I like to do, I've really found myself enjoying that. So something I just wanted to toss out there just to say what's been going on with me. Before we get into the fan-submitted questions, I will jump right in with the first question here in a sec. But that's kind of what's been going on with me. So that's K-State. That's me. There's probably other stuff that's going on with me, but not worthy enough to talk about. Cocoa Puffs, basketball recruiting, that's about the best you're going to get from me this week. We'll see what happens next week. But jumping into the fan-submitted questions here. Super quick break. If you're watching this video and you're not subscribed, 63% of the people watching this video right now are currently not subscribed to the YouTube channel, and feel free absolutely to ignore this and skip this, whatever the case is. But those of you that are watching right now and are unsubscribed, be sure and consider hitting that subscribe button if you love Kansas State, if you appreciate the channel. It's a great way to support me as I continue to grow on this journey, and it's also incredible to bring more K-State fans in like yourself on a consistent basis to see more of my K-State content. Once again, if you're in that 63% or if you're in the alternative in the 37%, I love and appreciate you. Back to the Cats. Shout out to Carter Schaefer for this first question. He's got a YouTube channel as well. Be sure and check that out, covering Kansas State. He does some good stuff over there as well. He asks, after yesterday's showcase, this is obviously a couple days ago, showcased how talented David Castillo and Ugonna Onyenso are. Where do you believe they fit into lineups? Do you start them? And is there a world where Ugo and Dave see the court at the same time? Not David Castillo, in this case, David Gasson. I think that there's a couple ways to look at this. One, we don't know what's going on inside the building. We don't know what's happening behind the scenes. There's probably a reason the staff likes a certain lineup. That being said, I would like to roll with both the young guys. If they deserve it, roll with it, man. And I also think there's a balance to how do you take either Coleman Hawkins or David Gasson off the court and let Ugo play a game. Maybe you talk to him before and say, let's see what he does in this role. Let's work together. Let's do this. And still give him starter minutes. Like Doug McDaniel played starter minutes for the first half of the season and then wasn't a starter. Like he'd come in at the, under 18 or under 16 media timeout, he'd play 36 minutes, or play 32 minutes, whatever the case is. You can get away with stuff like that for David Gasson, but realistically, the way I see it, you're not going to take out David Gasson or Coleman Hawkins. They're in their final year, and they've done everything the right way. I know they catch some flack. Well, Dave doesn't catch some flack, but Coleman Hawkins catches flack just because he's getting paid what he is, but he's done the right thing, man. He's gone about it the right way. I think he's been a pro's pro this season, but realistically, the way I see it, if Ugo's going to start, you have to go to a 3-big lineup, whether that be David Castillo starting or Max Jones at the 2, whatever the case is. My perfect pick if you're going to start Ugo is a David Castillo lineup with David Castillo, Max Jones, Coleman Hawkins, David Gasson, and then Ugonna Onyenso. If you're going to start Ugo, that's the lineup you got to go with. Could you pull David Gasson off? I'm sure he's a selfless dude enough that he would do that. I think realistically, you're going to see David Castillo starting soon. He just needs more experience. He needs more time. I'm not going to sit here and say he needs 36 minutes a game to get comfortable, but you give him more than 22 minutes a game, stay consistent around there for both him and Ugo. That's how you develop these guys. Tang always says that, hey, freshmen want to play, sophomores want to start, juniors want awards, seniors want to win. How do you go about balancing that with multiple dudes that fit each statistical category or each class category? I do think there's a reality where you see Ugo and Dave on this court at the same time. Might cut into some Moby minutes here and there, but I do like what we're seeing out of Ugo. It depends how the staff feels about him going forward. This was a step in the right direction for both players, but I definitely think you start David Castillo out of the rip, and then Ugo see where he's at in practice this week. See how he responds. I remember last year you had a huge game from Jarrell Colbert against Cincinnati where he had a double-double, and the week after that, he started a couple of games that here and there, half the games for K-State, but how do you respond after you have success? Do you take it for granted? Do you stack good days on top of that and say, I want more? I don't want to be this, once every 5 games I play well. I want it every day. How do these guys respond? Go from there. That'd be my pick, but if it's up to me and I'm the head coach, I'd start both of them at least once at some point in the season. David Castillo already had a couple starts, but keep both their minutes around 25 minutes a game. See where they go from here. If you want to give them more than that, if they're playing well, let them go for 30, but definitely don't throw them out to the Wolves too fast, but I would let them start to get more confident on the basketball court, and every game they're going to do that. Second question here, moving on. That was a three-parter there, so shout out to Carter for that. Carter Dewey, different Carter, but shout out Carter. Go back to the Big 12 championship game in 2022. Did Max Duggan fumble the football, or was it an incomplete pass? Folks, I don't know why. Like, this is my Roman empire. This play still runs through my head consistently. I remember exactly where I was. I wasn't at the game in person. I was in my buddy's dorm at K-State. We were watching. It's my final semester of Kansas State. Final semester at Kansas State. I got to go out on top with the Big 12 championship win. Super cool thing. I'm still so pissed about that. I know we won. If you lose, I'd be livid about it. That was such an obvious fumble. That should have been a safety. It is what it is. The referee crew botched that. The football moving forward in his hand, it never even leaves his hand. The fact that it's just going forward and then gets clobbered back does not make it an incomplete pass. It's the same situation as a strip sack, a forced fumble, like whatever the case is. Just because his arm's moving forward, if the ball doesn't leave your hand and it goes forward 0 times, like you don't release the ball to signify a pass, like it's not going downfield, it's a fumble. It's getting smacked out of your hand going the other way. That is not an incomplete pass. It is a fumble. Should have been ruled a safety. Great question. Still fired up about that. I'm glad we won. It helps out a lot. But just to answer your question there, Carter, it was a fumble. It was a BS call. Next question. Shout out to our guy Fireball Matt here for this one. What is a moment in which you were happiest being a K-State fan? This is a great question. I think I answered one last week, similar-ish, where I talked about watching the Elite Eight run, the initial one with Barry Brown, Cam Stokes, Dean Wade, Cartier Jada, watching that run in the 2018 season, I believe, watching it with my grandpa and crying after the Kentucky game on the couch. I remember that like it was yesterday. But I feel like the K-State experience for me, like, this is going to sound a little cheesy, and I apologize for that, folks. I'm going to come off that way off the rip. Every moment where I get to interact with one of you guys on the channel, like, I am so incredibly blessed to be in the position I am. I'm a dude sitting in a green room talking to a camera about Kansas State athletics, and I've connected with so many different people. There's almost 3,000 of you showing up to support the channel. Every time I get to interact with one of you guys, it reminds me, okay, this is exactly why I'm doing this. This is so cool. So I got to go to the season opener in 2023-24 in Las Vegas with my dad and my sister, watch the game, and we sit down in Vegas, and two dudes in front of us turn around and they're like, hey, are you Joe? It was the coolest thing ever. Went to a wedding, got recognized. Like, it's not like in a conceited, self-important way. I don't want to make it sound like that, but the fact that you can meet so many incredible people. Same thing like Fireball Matt. The dudes over at Cocaine Willie, of Cocaine Willie fame. Like, I've made so many different friends through just this common interest I have in a sports team. Every single time I have an opportunity like that, that is when I'm most happiest. I went to Jackson, Wyoming for Christmas, wearing my Cat Script sweatshirt that my sister got me. And this dude goes, hey, it's a Cats fan, man. What's up? And then he turns out his parents are from El Dorado, whatever the case was. You know, mom was a cheerleader at K-State, something like that. And it's like, those moments I never take for granted. It is so cool. That leaves me positive the rest of the day. I got a big smile on my face. So, great question. Shout out to Fireball Matt one time. A good dude. Also, go check out Cocaine Willie real quick. If you haven't already, you should. Go check him out. There's some great dudes over there. Shout out my boys Bob and Chef, the good Chef Andre Napier as well. But yeah, that's pretty much where I'm at. Every moment I get to have with one of you guys is a special moment in my books, and that's a happy time for me. I mean, maybe not happiest. I think you can look back at the Elite Eight either time, the Big 12 championship, but overall, it is a blessing, and I'm always privileged to get to talk to any of you guys. So if you ever see me at a game or something K-State related, come say what's up. I'd love to meet you. Moving on to the next question. Shout out to Big Salad Burger, man, my guy. If there's one restaurant you had to eat at for the rest of your life, what would it be? And for those of you not familiar with the pod, I try not to think about any of these answers. I try to think of them on the spot, so I keep it real, keep it fresh. And I'm not that dude that's like regurgitating stuff I've already said 4 times. But you know what's crazy is my brain thinks of one thing, and it's going to turn a lot of people off. It's going to turn a lot of people on here. Sexy food time. I need something with some diversity here. I need something where I can go and get one thing, then another time get something. Like, I don't want to sit down at like the same sandwich shop where they have 4 sandwiches total. Even if they're incredible, at some point I'll get tired of it. That's why I'm crossing out like Thai food, even though I love Thai food. That's why I'm crossing out certain genres like that. Go ahead, because alcohol is important in this too. If I had to eat there, have to drink there, everything, so on and so forth. Give me Chili's, brother. Give me some Chili's. We'll figure it out. Give me that chicken enchilada soup. Give me a triple dipper. Give me beers, margs, whatever you got. Chili's will play. I can figure it out. Might not be the healthiest. Might have to work hard in the gym to figure it out, but we'll figure it out. We'll thug it out, boys. Other than that, there's probably some good chain answers I'll think of, but on the topic of Thai food, because now my body's hungry for it. 135th and Metcalf and KC, Tuk Tuk Thai, hit it up. Awesome wreck. Love that place. But yeah, just out of sheer like consistency, I will go Chili's. I think that's a safe bet. I could also do Chick-fil-A. I could legit eat Chick-fil-A every day for the rest of my life. So maybe that's a ball nowhere take. Maybe it's not, and I apologize if you hate that. But shout out to Big Salad Burner one time. KSU Trust Fund Lord. Who starts in place of Ayoka Lee? There's a couple of different options here, but if you look at K-State's starting lineup before the injury, obviously Lee being out there, They run a 4-guard starting lineup. You're not going to slide anybody that's not technically a forward out there at this point. Like, you will get beat in the low block if you don't. Eliza Maupin's a bit of a mismatch in terms like she's a long athletic lady, but she doesn't have the same like size that Ayoka Lee does, so like the same physical presence. That being said, she competed her tail off against one of the better bigs in the Big 12 Conference yesterday against Arizona State. I think the easy answer is Eliza Maupin there. You could go Kennedy Taylor just to get the tip, control some stuff, but I think Eliza Maupin's one you work really well with. She's did great stuff running up and down the court, especially when you pair her with people like Taryn Sides, you pair her with Serena Sundell, Z Walker. Like, you have people around the court that are going to see her trailing and flashing down. She runs the floor so effectively. It's something I want to see more out of Ugana Yenso. I know the staff does as well, but like, when you're one of those bigger dudes or bigger ladies, like, physically, you're athletic, you can go up and get the basketball. When you're the first one up the court, there's a perfect play in my mind of what Taryn Sides did. Just lobbed it over the defenders, perfect, easy lay-in. Happened a couple of different times. Backdoor cuts. She's the first one up the court consistently. When you are sprinting and you're that tall, that athletic, you're going to be a good player. I'd probably go with Eliza Maupin. There's arguments for Imani Lester or Kennedy Taylor, but I'd go with Eliza Maupin. It'll be the easiest transition to being a starter. Could they go 5 guards? It'd be insane, but I'd love it. Toss Taryn Sides out there, toss, some mix of guards out there. That'd be pretty funny. But realistically, I think Eliza Maupin's the next man up in that situation. KSU, will special teams problems be fixed / addressed next year? And then ceiling and floor for women's basketball after the Lee injury. Yeah. Yes, it'll be fixed. Chris Kleiman fixes his problems. He doesn't leave them open-ended. If you want specifics, if you want us to return to Bill Snyder days of special teams I don't know that we get to that point. That being said, there's going to be enough dynamic playmakers in the kick return game. Dylan Edwards is back, obviously. A couple of the dudes that are explosive dudes in the return game. I think you'll have some special teams plays that are big highlight moments. That being said, I don't know if you'll ever return to your former glory, but you can affect teams positively on the special teams end. I think we get that done. Specifically referring to it, we're going to get the long snapper deals right. It also makes me say Randon Plattner was grossly underestimated, man. Everybody thinks, like, that's a position where you don't think about someone unless you're doing something wrong. Long snappers that way, sometimes punters that way. Like, if you're doing something wrong, you'll know. K-State special teams unit was not great. Kicks were an issue. Chris Tennant kind of had that season stolen from him. Shout out to Chris Tennant, but I think you'll see a little bit of inconsistencies in the kicking game specifically in terms of having a new kicker in the rotation. We'll see if Leighton Simmering steps up or who, Cub Patton, the true freshman kid, steps up. I think you'll have a lot of conversation there, but I think the long snapper idea, it's just a confidence thing. Confidence and repetition, they'll get that thing under control. Women's basketball in terms of floor and ceiling. The ceiling for this team, because the other thing about Ayoka Lee, this is likely not a season-ending injury. If it is, I'll eat my words. We'll talk about it again with a different ceiling and floor. But the ceiling is the national championship. Ayoka Lee gets back. Say it's a month injury. She's out 4 or 5 games. She comes back. She's out 5 games, 6 games. She'll be back in time for March Madness. Her physicality in the low block is a mismatch on any team in the country. Doesn't matter how many minutes she plays. She's going to be at the top of your scouting report. The next couple games, it'll be Serena Sundell at the top of your scouting report. It might be Taryn Sides from 3. It might be a couple different players here and there that play really good, solid basketball. But realistically, the ceiling is still a national championship. This team can win a national championship. You got to get Ayoka Lee healthy. You got to get the girls to step up and hit their shots like they have been this season already. But once you lose a key player like Ayoka Lee, it will change some stuff. The floor, I still think you're an NCAA tournament team even without Ayoka Lee. I wouldn't expect you to be a second weekend team without Ayoka Lee off the rip. They could absolutely surprise me. They've got some shooters, some ballers, some good players out there, but that's the ceiling on the floor in my mind. National championship with Ayoka Lee healthy-ish. Like, if she's above 70%, it's a national championship team or bust. If she's not healthy, she's not on the court, I'd say it's an NCAA tournament. Like, that's your line. Get to the tournament, go from there. But we'll see what happens after that. Those would be my picks, at least in that terms. Moving on to the next one. Fake YO Sports. Shout out to our resident guy over there on Twitter. Go check him out. Especially after the change in bowl game in terms of play calling. What change do you expect to see offensively from the Cats? What changes do you see? I really see them leaning into that end-around type offense. The misdirection, the sideline, east-west stuff, that's where you found so much separation because the middle linebacker sitting there saying, all right, I got Dylan Edwards who can outrun me to either side. I got Avery Johnson who can keep the football and do the same thing. Then you don't have to worry about DJ Giddens necessarily north-south. Like, DJ's an elite running back, guy that's going to make you miss in the hole. He's incredible at the point of contact. This team is speed. Speed will kill you. It's not something you just, you can develop. Your speed is going to be natural given. Like, you can develop it a little bit. You can work on different, drills, different flexibility, different things that can help you. But, ultimately, this team needs to rely on misdirection, not knowing where guys are going to get out. Where the biggest change will come, and this is going to be a lame change, and I apologize. It'll be great in the grand scheme of things. It won't be the sexiest. You will have so much better blocking at the second level. Think about the size of receivers. 6'3", 6'3", 6'5". Lincoln Keir 6'6" as a jumbo receiver. you're going to have so many dudes downfield that are blocking their tails off, that are wanting to win football games that way, and that's going to help when Avery gets to that second level, when Dylan gets to that second level. And the speed you see, those boys are going to be gone quick. Those would be the biggest changes. I think the combination of Joe Jackson and Dylan Edwards, I think they'll balance it well. If Avery stays healthy, because I know he was banged up more than let on after that Colorado game. If he stays healthy, he's going to be running a lot more, folks. I'll talk to you about that. The kid wants to win. At some point that sets in, it's like, I don't care how we do it, we're going to win football games. That would be the biggest change. You have downfield blocking, guys competing, 50-50 ball type receivers, and good players all around Avery. I'm excited to see that happen, but that's kind of my expectation as of right now. Shout out to our guy Thick Willie Burner over there on Twitter. Shout out to the man. Shout out Thick Willie in general one time. That boy is always thick. That boy's always killing it. If I was on a deserted island, what three things would I be? Or what three things would I bring? Sorry, not what I'd be, but so that's the question, man. It's always it's the age-old question, what would I bring? I'm going to be honest with you folks. I'm an outdoor dude, and I think I could be successful in the right environment. If I'm on a deserted island, it's like a big deserted island. If it's like the classic one coconut tree, a lot of water, your boy's burning in the sun immediately. Like, I will die of skin poisoning just from the straight radiation hitting me. I'm too pale for that. It'll kill me. Saying that I'd bring sunblock, I'm not bringing sunblock. I'm just going to let it eat. It'll happen. Logically, probably a life straw. I know they're not the best, but like some type of distillation situation that I can just, drink from a life straw. I'd also really try to advocate for some type of alcohol just because, hey, if it's not working, might as well get drunk. That'll make the eventual end a lot easier. Maybe a fishing pole. Figure out some bait, probably a fishing pole, or maybe some type of like a tent. Maybe I'd bring a tent just for shelter to get out of the sun. I'd try to bring some type of tent. I'd try to bring a life straw, some type of water situation, and then a fishing pole. Alcohol is just kind of like if there's extra space, if I have more than 3 somehow, that's what I'd do. Probably a tent or some way to get out of the shade, whether that's a canopy, whatever the case is. Something along those lines. Life straw so I can drink water. Fishing pole, try to catch food. I'll figure out the rest. We'll figure out fire. If I make it, great. If I don't, that's my pick. Either way, we'll see what happens there. Some people would advocate for a sword. I think the 3 items I'm going to bring are going to be much more applicable in this case, at least in helping your boy not explode out there in the hot sun. Next question is kind of a combo from 2 different people, so I appreciate both of them, but I will combine it into one. Shout out to Tyler Geeman. I think it's Geeman. I apologize if I'm butchering that. And Caitlin. Who do I think will be back for the men's basketball team, and how do you balance playing to win versus developing this year? In terms of who I think will be back, I always seem to forget people. I think it's likely you're going to see, I'll say 3.5 right now. My pick is 3.5. And I think David Castillo's back 100%. He gives me Avery loyalty vibes. I know people are on the fence about that. I think David Castillo's back for sure. I think Brendan Hausen's back. That dude is a K-State guy through and through. He will work through the hard times. I don't see that boy run into the portal. The question becomes here, who is 3 and who is 3.5? My 3 pick in a perfect world would be Ugonna Onyenso. That being said, I think the first 15 games have not done great things for his confidence in terms of staying at Kansas State. That being said, everything in college basketball is multiple. Everything is changeable just because of the way the landscape is now. If you prioritize your guys for 5 games, for 6 games, and say, look what we can do. Everybody and their brother thought Buddy Rich was gone at the end of the season, last season. He stayed. That changed drastically overnight, it felt like. Whether it's an NIL deal, whether it's prioritizing the guy, promising an XYZ thing, the point is, I think that realistically you're going to get one of the 2 bigs back, either by fall or Ugonna Onyenso. More likely Ugo just because he's playing more, see if the staff prioritize him. If they do this right the next 10 to 12 games, if Ugo shows up right in practice and deserves this, he will stick around in Manhattan. That's my perfect pick. I'm not going to sit here and swear by it and say it's never going to work out, that he's not going to go to the portal. Realistically, probably leaning towards the portal right now, 60-40 if I'd take a guess. You can change that very fast in college athletics. How do you go about developing? Those are my 3. CJ Jones might be a take back if he's interested in coming back. They might bring CJ back for that depth, athleticism. He's got time to grow and develop. I think CJ could be back, but it's kind of depending on what he wants at this point. Because you're still going to need, like David Castillo is going to be your leading point guard. I think he's going to be your lead guard. You might need another veteran in that backcourt. If this season's shown you anything, you missed at the point guard position with Doug McDaniel, just because there's a lot of things going on there. But I think you'll probably get 3 guys back for sure, whether it's, those 3, other 3. Oh, sorry, Moby. I'm stupid. Moby's coming back. Shout out to Big Moby. I like Moby a lot. He's one you can pour into. He's, this is going to sound negative because I don't know what the money he's making, but he's a guy that's likely not super duper over the top expensive in terms of NIL. He's a guy that came from the JUCO ranks, wants to develop, wants to play at a Power 5 level, or Power 4 level these days. He is going to be a guy that's prioritized for Kansas State basketball. I think he'll get 4 to 4.5 back. Those would be my picks. David Castillo, Brendan Hausen, Moby, and maybe Ugo or CJ. Those would be my picks as of right now. But you still got to do some work in the portal. You'll have to add people in the high school ranks at future notice. But As of right now, those would be my picks. Moving on to the next question. Jumping back to a Carter question from earlier. Well, not early, but separate question. Carter Schaefer, K-State has 1 incoming transfer and no high school commits. Anyone on my radar that would be good fits for Kansas State? Carter, I love you, and I'm so glad you asked that. I have people on my radar, actually, folks, and I'll give you 4 names. I know that one is a K-State offer. I don't know much about the other 3 in terms of their relationship to Kansas State. But there's a couple of kids that I went through this binge. Like I said in the earlier part of the video, I went through a binge trying to find the best dudes that I wanted to be in Manhattan as true freshmen that were still uncommitted for whatever reason. Guys that you're not going to get into a massive battle for NIL with Arkansas and Kentucky and Alabama, whatever the case is. Guys that you will find and say, this dude could be a star, he could be an NBA basketball player, but nobody's caught on to that yet. I found 4 dudes in my mind. I think it's likely that maybe 2 of these guys have immediate impact. I think the other 2 might need a red shirt. My picks are this. The one with the K-State offer, I'll start there first. Alex Alston. This is a dude, and let me spell that out for you because you're going to look up Alex, A-L-E-X. It's A-L-E-K-S, Alston. So Alex Alston's a top 100 player, about number 111 in the On3 industry rankings, or in the 247 Sports Index. Plays at Kenwood Academy, if that sounds familiar. It's where Data Ames went to college, or Data Ames went to high school, I think he's a really, really good basketball player. 6'9", but plays like a jumbo wing type dude that can go be a big guard. He can be a wing guard, Naquan Tomlin type dude, but he has NBA upside. I'm blown away that his recruitment isn't bigger. The biggest players in that recruitment, like Arizona State's there, a couple other teams are there, but you could win this. You have a relationship with him. They offered on December 12th of 2024. I don't know what happened after that, if there's much conversation anymore, but he's the one I want at the top of my board. The second dude I want to talk about, Robert Moore. He's a shooting guard. He's a guy that plays exactly like Jalen Wilson from Kansas. He is very similar in his pace, everything about him, like plays the game the right way, but an elite scorer. Guy averages like 26 points, it feels like. Every time I'm seeing a highlight clip, it's 20 points here, 30 points here, 33 points here, league MVP for this, tournament MVP for this. Robert Moore's another kid I'd look at, 6'6", 6'7", shooting guard type dude, big size. You want that dude on your team. The other 2 are more underrated guys, one being more of a big name than he is a big prospect right now. Miles Hero, younger brother of Tyler Hero, Miami Heat guard. Look into that. He's got 2 offers. It's like Cal Poly in North Dakota. The other dude I really like that's local to me up here, 30 minutes from me up here, Brady Woolley, a 6'9", 6'10", forward type dude that gives entirely vibes of like a unicorn type player, like a Kristaps Porzingis or a guy like that, Naquan Tomlin type dude. An underrated guy up here in Minnesota. Guy had a 2020 double-double recently in a playoff state game type situation. He's a good player. Brady Woolley, Alex Alston, Robert Moore, Miles Hero. Those are my 4 guys to keep on your radar. Don't know if there's any interest, vice versa. The one has an offer. Everybody else kind of in their own lane. We'll see what happens there. But those are my picks. Those would be the guys I'd prioritize, and I'd add 2 to those guys if I could. Personally, the hierarchy would be some combination of, it'd be Alex Alston 1, Robert Moore 2, Brady Woolley 3, Miles Hero 4. Moving on to the next question. Back to Big Salad Burner. K-State baseball question here. We're winding down a little bit in terms of time, but I'll keep rolling through these questions. Do not worry. Favorite returner for K-State baseball, favorite transfer, incoming transfer, and favorite freshman. Now, I'm going to be up front here. I don't know baseball like the back of my hand like I do basketball and football. I know enough to be dangerous. I have favorite players, but they're also going to be a little bit normie picks for this. Off the rip, favorite returner. This one's a personal one. How about my boy J.J. Slack, man? That dude is a stud. Big 99. Guy's got the Rick Vaughn wild thing going. Love it. Backflip off the mound. Dude is angsty. He's got that vintage Brady Singer type Florida angst. Love that dude. Give me J.J. Slack coming back. Next one, Nick English, another guy I feel good about this season, Had some big moments. There's a couple dudes you'd go with in the pitching room, a couple dudes you'd go with in the infield. David Bishop's one that's going to be a big-time player, but I think Nick English is a guy coming into his own. Favorite transfer is D. Kennedy from Texas. I don't know if I could have answered anybody else, to be perfectly honest with you. Not because I don't know him, but this dude is the guy at the top of the board. An infielder from Texas, had good moments in his limited at-bats. Feel like he's in line to be the next great infielder at Kansas State baseball under Pete Hughes. We'll see what happens. Feel good about D. Kennedy. Third, incoming freshman. This is a name I had to look up. Folks had to look through the roster. I'll go AJ Evasco, guy that batted almost 500 in high school, drove in 50-plus runs. I like what he's at, 6'5", 220, can't beat it. Young kid, give him some time, he'll get there. Excited to see about that. Had to go scan through the freshmen, decide there. So caveat, don't know the freshman like the back of my hand. That's on me. Next question from our guy Kevin Fielder over at Rivals. Shout out to Kev. Love the work he does. Go check him out over at Rivals. Which player on K-State's current football roster will have the longest NFL career and why? No Jacob Parrish, no DJ Giddens. Those are the 2 you kind of got to write off. It's a good question, to tell the truth. I think you have to look at positions. I think the current roster, so nobody incoming freshmen, at least, like you can't say Lincoln Cure right now. I have a good answer that might be a little more beyond the surface. And then I have another one that's kind of on the nose. Give me Avery for the on the nose one. Guy's going to be an NFL quarterback. He will be. 8 years in the league, 10 years in the league. I think he's going to be a starter for some team's franchise because his upside is absolutely through the roof. And it's the model the NFL is moving towards. Jaden Daniels, Lamar Jackson, Josh Allen. Dudes that are athletic can be dynamic playmakers and throw the heck out of the rock. Avery Johnson would be my pick there. The second one, you look at the position groups that Kansas State has done well developing. Go ahead and give me Zayshawn Rich, going to be an NFL prospect. Young kid, getting on the football field, going to do some great things the next couple years. Would not surprise me a single bit if he has an NFL career after Kansas State, because they've done so well in the transfer portal and high school recruiting at that spot. There's a realistic option that guys are keeping their eyes on the secondary room at Kansas State. You've seen it with Jacob Parrish, obviously now going to be a top 75 pick realistically. You've seen it with a couple different dudes that came through here in the safety room and the DB room. Julius Brent's second-round pick. Guys shoot up the boards when they declare to Kansas State. I will take Zayshawn Rich and hold that stock for a little bit. We'll see what happens there. Thank you for the question. Last two here. Patrick Mahomes' right arm. Shout out to Pat's right arm one time. What are the chances we see something different offensively than the 5-out this year? What are the odds? It might be time to change. Yeah, I don't disagree with that. I think the 5-out is still the right system. It is elite college basketball. We're not elite at running it, but it's the elite scheme in college basketball. Realistically, I think K-State knows they're making changes here and there. I don't think it'll be a massive overhaul, but you see individual stuff where they're like, all right, hey, we're not going to this set every single time. We're going to have Coleman Hawkins post up, try to play the one-on-one game, dink and dunk, figure it out here and there. You'll find some different stuff with multiple guard lineups, but I think you'll see some changes like that. I don't think it'll be a consistent game plan where you see 35 minutes of the game will be a different scheme. I think it'll be the 5-out general base, but they'll run more set plays out of the 5-out is what I'd expect in that terms. Final one to our resident KU fan on the channel, Flory Bazonga. Shout out to my boy over there. KU fans can be annoying. They can be jerks. So can K-State fans. Flory's a good dude. Big fan of this guy. Nice to me, at least. You know, I don't know what your interactions are with, but he's been a good dude to me. I appreciate him asking the question. At what point does hashtag crazy faith, I spelled crazy wrong, that's on me, put 2 Z's, crazy faith not enough and Tang actually has to coach the team? It's a good question, and I'll be honest about that. Like, you know, Coach Tang's a guy that relies on his faith. I'm a guy that relies on my faith. Like, I trust in the Lord. I believe in Jesus, all, you know, so on and so forth. But at some point, you have to act on your own ability. You have to trust your own guys. You have to build the right guys. You can have faith that the right guys make it to you, that you can do the right things, you can pray, you can do all the things, but like, you also have to stick up for yourself and do the right things. With this, Coach Tang's also the same guy that said at some point, all the history doesn't matter. And that Kentucky game said, all the history doesn't matter. All those dudes that were here, they're not coming back. At some point, you have to have some dudes. I know the dudes things kind of run with as a joke, but the point is, right now, you don't have the guys you need. Whether that's your fault, whether it's the assistant's fault, whether that's the team's fault, the player's fault, whatever the case is, whoever's fault it is, you don't have the right team. You can have faith that it'll get better. I do as well. I have faith that things are going to figure themselves out, but you have to coach the team every day. You got to pour into your guys every day. If it doesn't work out, something's wrong. You can chalk it up to whatever you want, but if at the end of the day, if you're not a good basketball team, you're not a good basketball team. How do you work towards getting that right? Faith alone isn't going to do it. You can have faith in the right things beyond that, but like, you still have to take the right steps. So to answer your question, you got to coach every day. You got to show up every day. You got to work hard every day and keep faith in the back of your mind always. That's the idea I'd go with there. So shout out to my boy for asking the question, but guys, it's going to do it for today's podcast. Thank you all for joining. I hope you enjoyed the video. Thank you all for watching, asking questions, so on and so forth. I will talk to you all soon. Next week, we'll have another video of the pod here, and we'll have some more videos throughout the week talking K-State specific stuff. But I appreciate each and every one of you for being here. Go ahead, subscribe, and I will talk to you all soon. Go Cats.